Happy Friday, folks, and welcome back to the random video blog where every single Friday I, Graham G.S. Matthews, talk about my rambling thoughts in the wrestling world, share a few stories, etc., etc. And from time to time, I'll do reviews of DVDs, books, just literally give my top 5 about random shit, just give my thoughts and just random stuff going on, hence the random video blog. So today, as per promise last week, I thought I'd give my 2 cents on Ryback's book, Wake Up, It's Feeding Time, A Professional Athlete's Advice on How to Succeed in the Game of Life. By Ryback, Ryan Reeves, what have you. I'm a big Ryback fan, so as soon as I heard this book was announced, it wasn't like, oh man, I need to get it the day it comes out. I literally saw Ryback promote it on his Twitter. I think like either the day that it came out, or I'd read somewhere on like the dirt sheets or whatever that had been released that day. And I wasted no time in ordering it. I had still money left over on a gift card I got for Christmas like the year prior. Just the right amount of money. And even if you don't have an extra gift card laying around, it's well worth the purchase. I mean, in short, I'll get into like the specifics about it in just a second, but in short, it's well worth the read. It's only about 230 pages. It's not like it's 500. I'm a big wrestling author fan, if that makes sense, of like wrestlers' autobiographies. This isn't really much of an autobiography, and I think he said he might work on one of those at some point in the future. Ryback can clarify that for me, but like as it said on the book itself, it's a professional athlete's advice on how to succeed in the game of life. More of like a motivational type thing, and giving tips and many facets of life and stuff like that, which doesn't really surprise me at all, considering the way that he is in real life and how he was in WWE towards the end in the final few years. And remember that promo when he came out on Raw, which I mean, I was already a Ryback fan to begin with, like dating back to his NXT days, but when he came out on the final Raw, of 2015, I want to say, and he talked about how the Secret inspired him and all this other stuff. That's really who Ryback is. Like outside of the ring, if you see what he tweets, he's a very positive person. So that's what makes me a big fan of his, both inside and outside the ring. And he talks all about that stuff in this book, which is what really drew me to buying the book. I mean, it would be cool to find out, he does talk a lot about how he got into the wrestling business and stuff he experienced along the way and friends he's had in the business. Wade Barrett pops up a lot. Daniel Bryan pops up a lot. Former Nexus cohorts. But anyway, so what really drew me to this book was the inspirational messages that he promised throughout the book, and being a big, as I've talked about here on the show before, and like injection of inspiration that I do on the channel as well. I'm a big PMA, positive mental attitude guy as well. I'm huge into motivation and shit like that. So as soon as I found out he was writing this book, I said I gotta have it. It's a little over. Again, I don't want to. Just speaking for myself here, I don't clearly remember. I probably should have looked this up before I filmed the video. I think it's a little over $20 on Amazon, like hard copy. Hard copy it is. I think you can get it for a lot shorter, like a lot less expensive on Kindle, if you like that kind of thing on your iPad. I had it for both. If you buy the hard copy first, you can get it for a lot cheaper than on Kindle as well. So you can get both formats, both platforms, and it's like a couple bucks on Kindle after you already buy the hard copy. So if you don't have the book on you and you want to read it on your phone or your tablet at another time, you can do that, which I did multiple times. And I have not read a book this quickly in quite some time. I would read books literally monthly in middle school and high school, more so middle school. I just don't have the time anymore to read, but I think it really speaks volumes that I really put time aside to read this book, especially when I was working, when I first got the book about a month and a half ago. During dead time at work, like during the week when I was working on winter break, I would put time aside when there was I work at a movie theater, so when there was no one showing up and it was like dead in between hours, I would crank out a bunch of pages in the book and it would add up. And I only had like about 100 pages to go, and I read a whole bunch of pages on my way back to school about a month ago. Then I just cranked out the rest over President's Day weekend, the weekend after that, last weekend, whatever. So anyway, basically what you came here to find out, what is the book about? Like I said, motivation and stuff like that. So the table of contents, he talks a lot about health, natural supplements that he sells on his website, feedmemore.com. Cheap plug, so check that out. So he talks a lot about that stuff. I'm not a huge health nut. I actually might not to say I'm going to become huge into health after this, but I think it's cool for someone like me that doesn't go doesn't go to the gym all that often. I'm more of a DDP yoga guy, which I'll probably talk about in another video at some point. But to find out more about health, he talks about taking care of your body, supplements, working out, waking up, and sleeping, and whatever. The importance of sleep, which is fucking important, trust me. And a lot of the stuff that he says, I felt like I felt myself relating to in either one way or another. Ryback, I think, is in his late 30s. I'm 21 years old. And I've said this before, an injection of inspiration to kind of merge the two platforms for a second. I think there's, no matter what age you are, there's a lot of ways that you can experience something similar to someone else. Regardless of what age you are, you can experience anything at any age. But so he talks about a lot about that in the book. So the health stuff is cool for the first 70 pages. My favorite part of the book is when he talks about inspiration and attitude, self-improvement. That's how it's broken up into sections. He talks about relationships a little briefly, kind of briefly for about 10 pages. I wish he went into more depth about that, relationships. I'm a big sucker for like love stuff, but he doesn't go too much into relationships. He talks about breaking up for like a page and a half. And that's kind of how the book works. He'll give like a page lesson on something. He'll give a page lesson on blood type. Give a page lesson on supplements and so on and so forth. So it's not too much information being thrown at you. And even if you don't want to read the whole book, I would strongly recommend that you do. Just take from it what you will. Like whatever interests you the most, whatever you feel you need help with the most. There's a nice foreword in here from his buddy Pat Buck that I know he does the podcast with. He also has a section on money, personal responsibility, and that's about it. I mean, if you really pace yourself with the book, and you could probably read it all in one sitting if you wanted to, if you really have enough time in your hands. I don't, so it took me a little bit longer. But for a month and a half, a little over a month, it took me to read this book, which is not long at all for me, just because I don't have the time to read. Usually it takes me upwards of a year to read a book because I don't have the time. But when a book captivates me as much as this one did, then I put time aside to read it, especially when I have time, and I'll make time to read it. And I would strongly recommend you check out the book. So again, a lot of cool inspiration stuff in here. Like I said, I think the self-improvement stuff is my favorite part of the book when he talks. But again, I'll give a few examples here. He talks about being thankful, society today, forgiveness, unlimited courage, affirmations, airplanes, and attitude. Like things that you can do to better help your life, to better help yourself, in various aspects, whether it be physically, mentally, emotionally. There's a lot of things you could take away from this book. Favorite quotes. Some of the stuff not that I already knew, but stuff that I already personally believed, and stuff I never really thought about in a certain light before. Again, I don't want to give certain stuff away. You got to read it for yourself. But I thought it was a fascinating read. Again, for a guy who just loves to read, I don't have too much time to read, but when I find a good book, I will dedicate and devote time to reading that book. And again, if you're going to buy this book thinking he's going to shoot on WWE, he's going to bury a bunch of people, this is not the book for you. I know he talks about that kind of stuff on his podcast. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff and his take on the current wrestling world and his time in WWE, check out the podcast. This book is more about self-improvement. It's motivational. It's a motivational book, and I don't really get to read a lot of these kind of books. I bought The Secret because of Ryback. Like literally days after he talked about it on Raw 2 years ago, I bought the book, and I have not had a chance to read it since. It was actually the last Raw of 2014. Sorry, not 2015. Just to remind myself, and I fucked up earlier. But anyway, so I bought the book, The Secret. I have yet to read it in full. So this was kind of my wrestling version of The Secret, and it's a great book, so check it out when you can. Whether you're a Ryback fan or not, it's irrelevant. Just the information in here I think is really fascinating. My only real gripe with the book is just the fact there was a bunch of like grammatical errors. He says himself, like at the end of the book, his writing is not his strong suit. It's his first book. He sold it on Amazon pretty quickly. He left WWE in August. He released this book in January, so I don't know how long it took him to write this book. I don't know. I'm sure he had someone like proofread it or something, but yeah, that was just something that stood out. Not like one or two errors like I've seen in Jericho's book before. There were like a handful of grammatical errors, but I'm not one to say like, oh, that was spelled incorrectly, or there's no punctuation here. That means the book is terrible. That ruins it for me. Like, fuck that. And I'm a journalist. So people who read my articles who say, oh, like all this stuff is spelled. If there's a lot of problems, and there's quite a few in here, like grammatically, but it didn't ruin the book for me. Like, the content is what matters in my opinion. And there's a lot of good shit in here. And take from it what you will. Regardless of whether you're my age, younger, older, whatever, it doesn't matter. Really good book. Only 230 pages, so it's really going to breeze by if you pace yourself and read a little bit each day. You could be done with it within a month if you have the time to read, unlike me, unlike I do, or whatever. It's a really good book, so check it out when you can. Find it on Amazon. It's on his website. Get the Kindle version. It's cheaper if you want. that's what floats your boat. I like hard copies, so I bought the hard copy, and it came within like a couple days. So yeah, good job, Ryback, and you guys on your first real book. I look forward to hopefully reading another autobiography from you at some point. Would love to find out more about your career and the Nexus stuff and just everything else you've done in your career and what you're up to now and stuff like that. So, again, good book. Check it out. Wake Up. It's feeding time. I've done other reviews here on the channel before. I talked about Hulk Hogan's book in late 2015 here on the channel. Last year, I talked about Chris Jericho's book. His latest one, the third one. I think he's coming out with a fourth one later on this year. I think this summer, which I can't fucking wait for. So my book reviews are kind of far and few between. Like one per year as it stands right now. But hopefully now that I'm finding more time to read, I was in the midst of reading Daniel Bryan's book right before I came back to college late last year, so I might review that at some point and read the rest of it and talk about it for you guys here on the channel. So again, I don't do book reviews too often here on the random video blog, but I review DVDs. I talked about AJ Styles' DVD recently. I do top 5 lists. I talk about my experience going to wrestling shows, meeting certain people. So subscribe for that stuff alone. You know, not only that, but also the Wrestle Rant editions, WWE Network and Chill, Wrestle Rant Radio excerpts, hashtag AskGSM, Injection of Inspiration. If you like this book, you'll like Injection of Inspiration. Looking forward to hopefully meeting Ryback when I put up this video. It's going to be Friday, March 3rd. They're having a Northeast Wrestling show tonight, which I really wanted to go to in Waterbury. And Ryback does not go to NEW often. I wanted to go. I can't. I'm going to Mania. So it's going to be hard to drive home. So I was very unfortunate about that. So I was not too happy about that. But anyway, so hopefully I can meet Ryback at some point down the line. And if I do, I'll talk about it right here on the random video blog. So anyway, guys, point being, be sure to like the video, leave a comment, subscribe, share the video. All that stuff is amazingly appreciated. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy Fastlane on Sunday. And I'll catch you guys down the road.